Good evening, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Suryansh Basumalik, and you are watching the premiere episode of the What Now show. And today, for our first episode, we have a very special guest with us. She is indeed one of the most unique personalities in the world of sport in India. She is the captain of the Indian women's rugby team. She is a rugby player by vocation and a physiotherapist by profession. She is one of the most well-rounded individuals in a field, and it is my pleasure to introduce our guest on the show, Miss Vabhiz Bharucha. Welcome, Vabhiz.
Thank you so much, Suryansh. How are you?
All good, all good. How are you?
Excellent.
Well, I mean, let's just jump right into it. I mean, rugby in India. I mean, it's a very prominent sport in the world, but in India, it's
Yeah,
not as covered, right? So, I think my question is, when people really approach you and say, "Why rugby? Isn't rugby just a sport where you hit people?" How do you respond to them?
Mhm.
Because it's much more than that.
it is. So that's exactly how I respond to people for that matter. Because in no sport are you there hitting each other more contact than chess, for example, or cricket.
Yeah,
So the sports like all our contact sports, right? All our contact sports have the same misconception attached to them. So when we talk to an individual, we actually when somebody approaches me and says something like, you know what, why you chose rugby? You're just beating each other up there. And sometimes I really don't care, because if a person really thinks that on a field we would hit each other, I don't think I should even waste my breath explaining anything. But however, if there's somebody who genuinely does not know what's happening and it might seem as a very aggressive sport, is when I tell them that, you know what, that's the contact which is a part of the game. It is what the game is. And whether you believe it or not, we don't get as injured as you think we do, because we go on through such a lot of strength and conditioning to be able to take that kind of contact. So we're
right.
not hitting each other. We're actually, it's called tackling. So we're tackling
Yeah.
each other on field. Uh, so it's not a brutal sport.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I do have a little bit of experience in rugby. I have been like in my city, Kolkata. I've been playing a little bit myself. So
Of
yeah,
course.
yeah. So I mean, that brings me to the next question. I mean, uh, how did you really get into sports itself? As in, how did you decide contact sports and then rugby?
So I've been in sports since a very long time in my life. When I was a little kid only, I was always spotted by my sports teachers in my primary school, in my secondary school, that, this this sample is, quite a thing. So it can be utilized in sport. So I've always been identified as the child who's great at running, doing all these outdoor activities, etc. So sport has happened for me since I've been like 5 or 6 years old.
Right.
Dad used to take us out for swimming, cycling, running. That used to be like routine for us. And when I got into school and when I got into senior school, the whole concept of changing the mindset of playing a game and playing a sport happened.
Right.
So I got into athletics. Rather than just running aimlessly, I was nurtured into running 100 meters. So there was a guidance over there. I did the triple jump, long jump. Again, there have been guidances there. So all these sports ended up happening for me. And then finally, when I was 12 or 13 years old, I started playing handball.
Ah,
And it happened very as a matter of fact, where I was sitting. So I had gone to school for my athletics practice, but nobody from the athletics team turned up, nor did my coach. So the handball coach was there and the team was there. So I'm sitting and watching them play, and incidentally they needed a goalkeeper. So my that coach said, Bobby's, get up and become goalkeeper, go and stand over there. I said, what do I have to do? He said, just don't let the ball go in the goal. And not a single goal went. And he just sat there and he stared at me. He said, where have you been all this time? I said, I was sitting here only, you know. And he said, I'm going to speak to your the athletics coach, we're going to move you over to handball. So that's how handball happened. And I was a goalkeeper. And 3 years went in that. I played for the state. I played for Maharashtra. I captained Maharashtra team.
Oh,
And then, yes, and then I was in my 10th standard. And as you know, 10th standard is given so much importance to. So once I returned from my handball nationals, my coach, my principal was like, Vabhiz, now bus, this is it. No more uh, games for you. Now you're going to focus on your studies. And just then was when the coach of the Pune rugby team, they have a club called Kafandra, Kfandra, was when he approached my school to inculcate and promote rugby as a sport in the school. Now, I don't know what happened on the managerial front, but my sports teacher, he introduced Surud Khare to me and my teammate Neha, who's also the vice captain of the Indian women's team right now. So we went to school together, yes.
ah,
So he introduced us to each other, and Surut sir told us, and he's a tall 6 foot man, okay, and we're just like these two little girls looking at him, and we're like, what is this? And he said, I have a club in Pune. We do football and rugby for men and women. Why don't you join? And we were like, okay, sure, सब कुछ खेल चुके हैं तो ये भी चलो try करें. And that's how rugby happened, and that's it. There's been no turning back ever since.
oh, wow. I mean, so it seems that, firstly, like leadership's been inculcated within you like since before rugby even. And it's quite cool that, you've moved forward with your friend from when you were kids all the
Yep.
way to your international levels.
Oh, yep.
That
Yep.
was It's quite brilliant. I mean, so what was it like, because you've been switching between so many sports,
Yeah.
did it was it a bit difficult to adapt at first, or did you just sink right into it?
You're talking sport to sport or from all the sports to rugby?
From sport to sport.
So the basic of every game is running, endurance, hand-eye coordination, or hand-foot or foot-eye coordination. Now you just apply that basic foundation to any sport, and you will excel at it. So initially, and then obviously each sport has its specific skills, which is what you work upon. So when I went from running 100 meters to going to becoming a goalkeeper,
That's some connection issues.
Suryansh, got
Yeah,
me?
yeah, yeah. That was
Yeah.
some connection issues. Yeah.
Okay. So there was definitely a difference between running 100 meter and being a goalkeeper.
Mm-hmm.
There one is where you're running for 60 or whatever 15 16 seconds at a dash, and one is where you're just standing in one position, moving in between a space of about 4 or 5 meters left to right with your hands up. So the, the the job description is very different, the position description is very different, but however, in handball we use so much of the athletics. I was expected to go around to field sometimes, like not be the goalkeeper sometimes and play on field. And because of the because so I'm big in build and I'm fast, so I'm a very versatile player on field. So I could be. So I had my. So actually, it was more than being difficult to adapt. I had a lot of gold in my bag, where I had the basic knowledge of running and endurance, and then I had a sport.
Ah,
So so
so you
I had to
sunk in
just
pretty well.
basically just. Yes, yes. And then
Yeah.
when rugby happened, I was fortunate enough actually to have gotten a stint of wrestling in school. So I did
Ah,
wrestling for about 6 to 8 months in school, and I didn't quite enjoy the sport because it was an individual sport, and I don't. There was no fun. There was no communication and interaction and teamwork and stuff. So it was not fun for me, which is why I chose handball over wrestling. And when rugby happened, I was like, oh my god, this is like wrestling on a field, and you have your teammates. So it was fun for me. It was like, oh, okay, this is it. So
quite the
there were a lot
born
of,
leader kind of impression here. Yeah, I mean, it really shows how good of a team player you must be on the field. I mean, I've seen. I mean, when you came to Calcutta for the All India, I mean, I was there, so I had
Oh,
the
you
privilege.
were.
Yeah, you were playing for the
Oh,
Rams. You were playing for the
yes.
Rams once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I was. I saw that match. It was a joy to watch.
So
So
cool. So cool. Thank you
yeah,
for
so ever
watching.
since then, I've just been ever since I got into this itself. So I was just thinking that there's so many people I've come across. So when I thought of people, I just I've seen this person play. This person's done so much. Then I thought of it, and brilliant. Um, when you I mean when you tell me something. So when you got into rugby, you first played for this Cavandra, right? So how
Cassandra, yeah.
yeah, so after did your time there, how did you get selected to get into the in national team and then eventually rise the ranks to captaincy?
Right. So the journey all began in 2009. Neha and I joined Cassandra. We joined Pune Rugby, and what happened was everything happened at the right. We were at the right place at the right time. So women's rugby has been in India, like the sport has been in India since about 2004, 2005 in various different pockets in the north, east, south, the services teams, the obviously in Pune. It never really came to having a competition. Everyone was playing it on their own time and at their own convenience. And in 2009 was when the Indian Rugby Football Union decided that they will organize a tournament for women rugby. So the first ever national women's rugby tournament was hosted in by the Bombay Gymkhana, and the tournament was hosted in May, and Neha and I joined rugby in March.
Hmm.
So it was that close. So we joined in March. We got a chance to represent the the Pune rugby team uh, in the nationals. Because the sport was so new, we directly had a nationals. There was no, rung of, there was no hierarchy of playing tournaments. So
Right.
we directly had the nationals, and a little bit into the nationals, we saw these jerseys that were hung up on the podium, not on the podium, but where the commentator sits. So we were like, what are these jerseys? They look very smart. There was a blue jersey and there was a white jersey. What is it? What is it? Went up close and saw it as the India colors. And we were like, wow, this is cool, yeah. This is an India jersey. Will they give the best man and the best woman this jersey as a memento or something? All these thoughts started going in our mind. And the coach came and told us that they are scouting for the Indian women's rugby team. And I was just like, oh my god, this will be next level if I get selected. Whatever, that whole concept of playing for selections was never in my head. So I was just there having fun. We were there. We were one of the best teams. In fact, we won that tournament.
Oh wow.
And yeah, yeah, we won that tournament. And they at the end of the tournament, the prize distribution, and they call out a couple of names. We were about 20 to 25 names that were called out, and
Was
they were
this a
like,
sevens game or a 15s?
"This is sevens. This is all sevens. Sevens. Way
Okay.
back then, we played only sevens. Yeah." So we were called out, and they said, "Okay, so these are the probables for the Indian women's rugby team," and we were just like, "No way!" Like, there's always been a dream to play for India and represent India, either as a player or as a coach or as a management or in some form,
Yeah.
and it's happening. So firstly, just taken that feeling that, okay, you know what, now we're at the next step of getting selected for India team. And we had a camp for about 2 weeks in which the coach checked our general stuff. I mean, it was the first camp, so they were not very strict about a lot of things. So it was all trial and error and touch and go kind of stuff. So that happened. And I made it to the team. And it was just, I was just like, oh my God, like it is happening. Like it is really, really happening. And there were so many mixed emotions because, you've waited for so long for this thing to happen. and now it finally has happened, and now you don't know whether it is true or not, and now what from here, and the responsibilities, and you just, generally you've gone from here to here, and you just got to have to take that in and bear that responsibility. So many things going on in the head. Yeah,
Well,
that's how it happened.
once you reached here, I mean, of course, there was
Yeah,
this level where you started, becoming the captain and then representing, being the ambassador to India all around the world. So,
yeah,
I mean, when you entered the team, did you
yeah.
say to yourself, like, I want to be the captain, I want to do this, or
No, as a matter of no, as a matter of fact, actually, Suransh, before since I've joined the game, I've always had people who have been mentoring me or who have been advising me. So there was this feeling that I am better off as a player, as in a non-captain than a captain, and
hmm,
I'm comfortable being that way. But so they chose captaincy on basis of your experience and on basis of your seniority. So our first captain, Avni Sabde, who's from Pune, she had to leave the sport for her personal reasons. Then Surbhi Date, the second captain, also from Pune, from our club only, she also had to leave the country for education. And then it was either Neha or me, because we joined in at the same time and our seniority is of the same level in the team. So at that point of time, I still had a feeling that it was Neha, me, and one more girl from Odisha. And at that time, I still felt that what, maybe one of them will get it, because I was so comfortable, like I said, being a non-captain. So I never actually had that thought of climbing up to that position until it happened.
well, I mean, once you reach that captaincy level, I mean, after the fact that you were once you made the ranks and you had this leader's personality, at least so it seems now as well.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
what was it? What was it like? Being told that you're going to Singapore representing Indian rugby. You're going here representing Indian rugby. As in, what was it like being put on that pedestal?
So the first time it happened when it was in 2013. The entire you feel this, oh my god, I've reached the next milestone in my career, and there's this feeling of immense pride, like you're proud of yourself of where you've reached, but at the same time you understand that being a captain is not easy, and because there's 11 other players on the team who will look to you in a dire straits situation, and you need to be there, physically, mentally present, to be able to advise your team and to be able to give the best call in that time. And whatever the call then may be, it's the team's responsibility, and at the end your responsibility, because you become face. You're the face to that call. So a lot of
Right.
these, and that's something that happens to me every time that they say that I'm captain. That there's this switch that, okay, you know what, now there is the coach, there's the team, and then there is a mediator.
And the
Yes, that
captain is that mediator.
the captain's the mediator. So it's not that I am the coach on field, and that's actually extremely stupid. It's a very stupid thing to even say, but it's that making that call on field when the coach's voice does not reach, because the coach is usually shouting from the outside, but all of our adrenaline is so high that then the only thing you can bank upon is experience, and more often than not, the experienced person on the team is your captain, or it could be any other player on the field who has the similar kind of experience. So maybe I'm on another corner of the field and say Neha, or let's say a Mira Rani who's from Odisha, or let's say a Priya who's from Delhi. We're all of the same time. And so, if they're on another side of the field, a junior player can walk up to them and be like, Didi, I'm just not understanding what to do in this situation. What do I do? And that is the sounding advice. That's the sounding board that you want to be on field, and it's an extremely like, responsible position, because you need to be the coolest on field, and you need to be the calmest on field, no matter what is happening. Even if someone punches you in your face, you have to be cool.
Have you ever been punched in the face?
No, lucky for the other one, I haven't.
I would imagine so. Um, I
No,
mean,
I mean, and rugby is generally a very disciplined game. So none of these things happen. More so in the women's side, we're still a little less more on our testosterone. So it is happens even lesser. So no, nothing like that has happened on.
I mean, in the game, have you ever been in like these tough situations, or like in a situation where like you have to mediate, or there's a huge scuffle, I need to help my teammate? Like, what's it been like in those
No,
situations?
no, there is never. Actually, like I said, in the women's side, it happens very less often. Even if you see on an international front, the fights and the squabbles take place very less. I mean, there are sometimes when uh, somebody has pulled someone's hair and then they're just shouting at each other, but that's about it. That's something that happens. I mean, that those interlingual fights keep happening. So
I mean,
that's
uh
I
like
stay
which
away from those.
brings me to like the like the implications of it. I mean, let's say after a game when you're done, I mean, being a
Yeah,
leader, seeing that, let's say one of my teammates or teammates has gotten injured, or one of my teammates is heartbroken after a loss, how do you
yeah.
how do you deal with that communication?
So let's say I deal with it in two separate ways. So if it's just a feeling very bad or a heartbreak after a loss, uh, I prefer that my teammate goes through that feeling. I don't want to make her feel better about it. The only reason being that only when you know how bitter it tastes will you want to taste sweet. Now I don't want to sugarcoat it for you. Yes, we've lost, and yes, you are equally responsible for that loss as I am. And that's all that I want that teammate of mine to understand. It's not a bad feeling. It's not something wrong. You must go through it. You must go through it to want to be able to come out of it. Because if I'm going to make you feel good about a loss, you will never know how bad it is.
Hmm.
So when we lose, I never go and console the team or tell them that it's okay, it's fine. In fact, I'm like, you know what? We need to understand where our rank is right now, and we need to really up it. Or sometimes I just don't say a word. We meet after 24 to 48 hours. When we come together, we have a lot of fun, and that's about it. There is no trying to make each other feel better about it. Whereas when there is an injury that's taken place, I'm always there next to the person. Number one, because I have a little bit of a medical background. I'm a physiotherapist. I also am certified by World Rugby as a first
Yeah.
aider. So my awareness is even on that front on the field. So every time a teammate goes down, I'm more often than not the first person to approach that situation, apart from the medic who's already there. So I make sure on my behalf that there is nobody who's interfering with the scenario by pulling hands and legs here and there. But after the game is over, I also make sure that we are continuously in touch with this person, because there is a sense of depression that sets in with
Hmm.
a player who's got injured. And talking to your teammates, and it's a sisterhood, right? So
Yeah.
talking to your teammates, just letting it out, is something that an injured player looks forward to. Obviously, based on every player is different. So some players just wish for their time, and that's it. You give them their time. Some players want to be spoken to, and then you just talk to them. And talking to them also is all about making jokes and laughs about what happened on field and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, while we're on the subject of communication, I mean, of course, there's been this lockdown that's been imposed on us. So, I mean, of course, there's been very little training going on, like within the team, of course. So
Yeah.
you've all been separated in your states. So, what is it
Yeah.
like, keeping yourself, your team in shape, communicating with each member? Has it been difficult in doing so, or has it just taking its pace?
Well, thanks to social media and the way that social media has actually taken over the world right now, with WhatsApp, with Zoom, we're actually very connected as a team,
Hmm.
obviously virtually. And in such scenarios, what actually helps us build our circle up or build the confidence in our circle or the teamwork is to see one of us doing something every day and posting about it, or at least informing everyone else that it's done. So our coaches are sending us workouts to do every day, every week. And
Okay.
what happens is, there are two ways to think about it, right? As a player, कि, अरे my other teammates are not doing it, जाने देना मैं भी नहीं करती. Or shit, my teammates out there putting her blood and sweat in together to be able to perform better the next year when we play. I think I should get my ass out there and do something. So what is happening is, when everyone is working individually together, it builds up the spirit of everyone else. So actually reaching out to all the athletes or all the rugby playing women, men, everybody has not been difficult, because when, uh, like I said, right, being a captain, if I slack off, I cannot expect the rest of the people to pull their socks up and move on. Because possibly people are looking that, you know what, oh shit, this girl who's reached quite a level in rugby in her career and is the captain of our country, she is out there doing her thing. What is stopping me? And I
Yeah.
want, and so when, and then they see that the other India players are also doing it. So they're like, my God, these guys are my seniors. They're the India team. And if I really want to play for my country, I can't be sitting on my butt. I need to get out there and work. So
Yeah.
this is how it's like a ripple effect.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because it's creating that solidarity not just with your team, but in like the players around the country and the
The
people.
whole country. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So then, I mean, while we're on the subject of social media, I mean, there was of course that the Tri Series that Rugby India had hosted.
yes,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
it was quite the interesting thing because this was, I think, the first time that I personally have seen
Yes,
that a sport is taking the initiative. If each team just coming together, like underlyingly just promoting the sport rather than just their own
yeah,
teams. So
right.
I mean, at this in the standpoint of like the rugby Indian authorities, I would imagine it was very good for their impact because they
It
must have
was
got some amount of coverage. Yeah.
definitely, definitely. I mean, there were media houses that were covering it. The Asia Rugby Board covered about the tournament. So we didn't have only the Indians who were voting, but also we had people from across Asia who were voting, just maybe who came across the page. Sometimes it is out of interest, sometimes it is out of curiosity. Okay, I'll just press on any team, yeah, based on whatever luck. So there was a lot of movement created on the Tri Series. I think it was a very good idea.
I mean, I would imagine because I mean, if this amount of publicity is not just good for the team that's getting the votes, but it's also good for Rugby India because the
It
hosting
is,
they're
yeah,
voting on Rugby India platforms, so it
yep,
must
yep,
be.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so in terms of like in a while with Rugby India, like other than just being the captain, like throughout the process of this lockdown and like the other work that you're doing with Rugby India, what has your communication been like with the authorities over there?
uh, so I'm I'm somewhere in the middle of being a player and on the how do I say it, behind the scenes.
Hmm.
So where something that I've been a part of actively along with the board is the social media stuff that's been happening. So to basically keep the crowd engaged via a player, so that's where my input comes in, and working with the social media management people to be able to create content. I don't know if you've seen that post where how much are you missing rugby? So
Hmm.
something like that is where I stepped in, and so these are the kind of just basically coming up with concepts of how to, or Rugby India 360 for that matter,
I
the
mean, how did
platform
you?
where everything.
Who came up with the concept of the Tri Series?
It was all from the board. I don't know. Yeah,
I
it was
mean,
something that came as a
yeah.
shock to me as well.
What was I mean for your team? You play for the Rams now, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So how did your club do in the Tri Series?
I think we stood 11th.
11. Yeah, that's. I mean, I think there
Yeah,
were 32 teams, right?
yeah, there were many teams.
Yeah, no, no,
Yeah,
not bad, not bad. So, how about? I mean, like through. I mean, of course, you've been there since like because from 2000 or 2004 to 2009. Of course, you've been there through the growth of rugby. I mean,
yeah,
that the
yeah,
starting phase. So, seeing from back then where it started and what it's come to now, and you know,
yeah.
how do you like in terms of the skill of the player, in terms of the coverage it's getting now? How do you think rugby is grown into India?
So it's been massive actually. Where we were in 2009, and so I will speak to 2009 and 2019. Okay, so those will be the two, the exact marking the decade. In
Hmm.
2009, we had close to about 8 club teams that were participating, and in 2019, we are at 23 states that are actively playing rugby and participating in the nationals. Uh, Back in 2009, we just had one nationals that would take place, a senior nationals. Now we have age grade tournaments under 14, under 16, under 19, under 20, and senior women's men's. So that's that many tournaments. There are affiliations to the School Games Federation of India, All India University, uh, the Khelo India Games.
Hmm.
So Khelo India University Games. So these affiliations have been the affiliations to obviously the Indian Olympic associations, etc., etc. So the affiliations have gone wild in that form. So in 2009, a player when they joined rugby, probably they would have thought that what's my future here? But now a 14-year-old can, or a 13-year-old or a 12-year-old can join the sport and be like, I actually have a pathway. So there's an entire player pathway created now for any individual, any person who joins rugby and who takes it seriously. They can go into all the age grade tournaments and play up until their senior level, right? And which and the benefit of having it in the university games is the kids play a lot of sports in school, and then after that they don't know what, and then there is this, oh shit, 11th and 12th, and oh my god, my bachelor's degree. So there's this 6 years of a gap, and then they want to play again. So there is this huge disconnection that happens. So the beauty of having the rugby as a part of the university games is the player remains connected to the sport until they reach the senior level, and this is how the next decade of players is going to come in through from the under 14 stage.
I mean,
And
yeah.
yeah,
Carry on, carry on.
yeah. So that's been one thing. Something else that have has actually worked around beautifully over the decade is creating an ecosystem, creating a rugby ecosystem. So the senior team members who all are there right now. So Neha, for example, she is a World Rugby certified coach. Priya from Delhi, she's a World Rugby certified referee. Myself, I am a World Rugby certified first aider. So we have all been made educators to be able to, like, once we're done playing, we will be able to give back to the sport in our own respect.
I
See,
mean,
we're still connected to the game, and we become the next rung. So Neha is already started to be molded into a coach. Priya's already had refereeing her international matches, so she's already started gaining her experience. I, on the other hand, have already been the medical on field, so I already have that much of experience on my side.
right. With that being said, I mean, on the international level, how do you, what's the procedure behind getting these certifications from World Rugby? Is there like some form or is it like a test that Rugby India does, World Rugby does?
So 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 if you are a player, uh, if you are a player who is playing rugby actively and who has got a certain sense and understanding and seniority in the game, what happens is the Indian rugby, so Rugby India has created own modules around coaching, refereeing, officiating and the medical course. So they've created a simpler version. So players who wish to apply for these, they first pass the Indian Rugby Union's test, and then once they have qualified that, then they give them a green signal or they give them suggestions to go and so then it's a filtration process. So let's say there's 10 people who Suyansh?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
can hear you.
you can. So if there's 10 people who are interested in coaching, so these 10 people they give the Rugby India test. Once they've given the Rugby India exams and the coaches of the local people have assessed them, out of those 10, maybe there are only two great coaches who have come out of that. Those two are then suggested ahead to do the World Rugby course. But the
Right.
World Rugby platform is open to all the players, whether you have joined one day or you've joined 1 week or 1 year or 10 years. The World Rugby platform is open to everybody. But the practical part, attending their courses, is something that comes as a suggestion from your local union. So that's how the it goes.
Right.
So
And
like I'm a physiotherapist, right? So Rugby India suggested my name for the uh, educators course that was organized in Delhi. So when my name comes through the union as opposed to a personal account, then the World Rugby also gives it more importance.
right.
And
I
that's
mean,
just how it works.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So to that respect, when you were now that you've been in the sport for so long, like what do you
Yeah,
think that on the international level when you're playing international games later, what do you
yeah.
think? Where do you see in Indian rugby or the Indian team now going into the future? How where do you see it standing like compared to now and before? Where do you see it going?
Uh, so when we started Suryansh in 2009, our rank was somewhere around 13. Okay, and over the decade, with a lot of ups and downs, with respect to getting denied 2 times to go for the Asian Games, that actually uh, was a massive destruction to our rank because in 2010 the Asian Games which was there, we participated in that and we attained the rank of number 7 in Asia.
Oh,
And due to some we don't understand, but due to some back end work or some politics, maybe we don't know as players, right? We are just the ones who suffer at the end of it. But rugby, the rugby teams were not allowed to go for the 2014 and 2018 Asian Games.
as in India didn't
This
allow you to go, or the Asian Games
Yeah,
Authority?
no, we qualified on the Asian Games level, but the Indian Olympic Association decided that uh, our applications were uh, non-eligible because they had come up with a rule saying that if you play a team sport, your ranking needs to be ninth and above or eighth and above or something like that.
Weren't you seventh?
Yeah, yeah, but that's on the Asian Games ranking. Our
Right.
ranking otherwise showed 11th.
Okay.
So there's there are a lot of shit hit the roof on that front. So we as a Indian team, we ended up. So like I said, we were on 13, we came down to 7, and then boom, we went back to 13th, 14th rank. And then since then, it's just been a huge effort to just get
Hmm.
back. And then in the same time frame, we were losing out on very quality players because of marriage and education and other priorities, jobs, etc. So we were losing out on a lot of players for close to about 6 years. Now, finally, because that rugby has created this clear pathway, players are sticking on to the game and are seeing value in the sport, and it's actually giving them more than they are giving the sport. So uh, now, however, things are looking very different, and currently our rank in Asia for the sevens is at number 9, and then the 15s is at number 41. This has been now we're at number 9, and I'm very confident that in the next 5 years we're going to go up 3 to 4 ranks very easily with the kind of talent that is coming in. And
Yeah, I
with
mean,
respect
I
to the
think the Indian rugby roster for the women's team and the men's team, I think you have like two of the fastest players out there. I think.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So we have Sweetie Kumari and Prince Khatri. So we
yeah,
have these two, we have these two speedsters on the team on the women's and the men's side. But the team in general is looking very strong and very promising. So actually, 2020 was supposed to be a very, very promising year for us. But now we've all got extra time to work upon and get all our injuries fixed. And 2021 is going to look even brighter for
yeah. I
us
mean,
because, like I said, we're on number 9, and in no time we're going to move up that ladder
hmm.
with the kind of experience that we have and the kind of coaching that we're receiving. We've got South African coaches on board.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
That's
we've
got to
got
be
a
that's got to play some amount of an asset because these
oh yes,
South African rugby is quite the is one of the best teams out there.
yeah. So in the 15s, they're number 1 now. They
Yeah,
won the World Cup last year,
yeah,
and even in sevens, they're quite top there. So we have a team of coaches that are from South Africa. We have a backs coach, we have a forwards coach, we have a strength and conditioning coach. So we're
okay.
getting a lot of specific training that's being done uh, and it's being taught to us. So it's a huge boon for the team uh, for the next 5 years at least. The rankings are definitely going to go up.
So when it came to this lockdown, I mean, of
Yeah,
course, I mean, Rugby India would have thought that I mean, they would know that this was supposed to be a very promising year for us. So depending on when this lockdown ends, has rugby like I would imagine that like for any economy at this point, because it's all taken a dip uh,
yeah.
is Rugby India like would you know this that when Rugby India would try to like host more tournaments now they would have some amount of a snag because I mean considering fundraising and that aspect they must have taken quite a hit.
It would definitely have taken a hit, and it has taken a hit. But I believe that the union has been able to, how do I say it, keep a lot of funds in the reserve for
Hmm.
a moment as such where where you're gonna hit rock bottom and you're gonna have to rely on something to move ahead. And luckily, they didn't. I don't think they didn't exhaust all the funds which came in the past couple of years. So I think those little funds that are left will help start the tournaments again, at least the ones on the senior level and the school games level, because those are usually taken care. The school games and the university games tournaments are usually taken care of by the state governments
So,
and the
for the
national board.
on the international level, I mean, of course, that the ranks the ranks could have gone up this year. So, have you all planned on
Yeah.
any international matches, like any friendly matches with like any other people who are ahead on those rankings? Actually,
Not that I know, but there are a lot of talks in the pipeline about increasing the international exposure of the national teams. Yes,
who is at the
but I
top
don't know about
in Asia right now?
Japan
Japan, yeah, Japan. They hosted the World Cup, if I'm not wrong.
World Cup. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
So, I mean, let's talk about like let's get deeper into like your situations in the game. So, I
Hmm.
mean, in terms of like let's say when you're on the field and
Yeah,
let's say you're a few points down and you need to score a try or you need to get that one last kick to even the score or
yeah.
get ahead. Uh, have why don't you like walk me and the viewers through that how have you tackled that situation in the sense no pun intended but how have you communicated with your team and this is how we're going to run the play and move forward.
So very honestly, Suryansh, like I said, the team as of now is a very experienced set of girls. We have a very beautiful balance between experience and young blood, which you will be able to see a stark difference when you watch us play.
Hmm.
Uh, when it comes to these very catch-22 situations, there is sort of, it's like an unsaid communication that happens throughout the team that this needs to be done. The coach obviously puts in his input from the outside saying that, guys, just one more score, just one more minute, whatever it is. And the communication has reached all seven girls on field. And the beauty of that moment is that everyone is on the same pitch, everyone's in the same boat, whichever way you might want to see it,
Mm.
and everyone puts in their 100%. Our coach tells us, don't give me 110%, just give me 100%. That's all I want. So everyone's giving their 100%, even though we are at the maybe last 2 minutes or last 3 minutes of the game where we're completely physically and mentally gone. And then it's just that adrenaline that takes us through.
Mm.
And it's happened. It happened in Philippines when we played against Singapore, where we needed just those 3 points to bump ourselves up to win the tournament or to win the match. And it happened in Indonesia when we played against Indonesia, where we were losing a game 17-5 or 17-7. We were losing a game, and then we won that game 21-17.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah, we won that game 20. You should check it out on YouTube. It's a beautiful game. It In these scenarios, no, Suryansh, what I have noticed about the team is we get onto the field knowing that we're going to win this match. We have it. So even in the first half or the the first half of the second half, we are losing and literally losing. It's not like by 1 2 points, and it's like we're losing, and then it's like boom 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 boom. We just flow, you know. And what actually takes us through all of that is we have a very solid strength and conditioning program that is implemented on us during training, which really hits us down to the worst side of us, and it really gets to the deepest level of our devils. And but that's something that takes us through these moments.
I
And
mean,
as a captain, like I said, what I have to do is I have to be very, very cool and very affirmative on field. At no
mhm.
point can I be negative to the girls, because the moment it's like that, there's just a shutdown. And we cannot afford even one person shutting down.
Yeah, so I mean that brings me that's actually what I wanted to ask you, that I mean, of course you've gone through this crazy strength and conditioning session, and then once you're on the field, well, two things. First, when you're going on, has there been any amount of overtrain, as in like wear and tear going onto the field, so to speak?
Um,
Like you're
it's
stiff
difficult
and
for me to say. It's difficult for me to speak generally for the whole team, but there have been moments when we've had. So it happened to me personally when we were playing in Brunei. We were playing in Brunei in 2018, and we had a match. We finished that match, and coach insisted that we took an ice bath before we went into our final, not our final, but one of the deciding games. So that that period in the middle when we took the ice bath, we did our blood flushing work, etc., etc. And when I was jogging towards the field, when we were jogging as a team towards the field, I could not feel my legs. They were so heavy, and they felt tired. And I don't know what it was, but probably the ice bath didn't suit me. I should not have taken it at that point in time. Maybe I should have recovered just with stretching and with active recovery as opposed to get the ice bath done.
mm.
So, so that's something I realized about myself, and ever since that match onwards, I've never taken ice baths in the middle of the tournament. It's because coach said, this is what we should do. I did it. But with
How did
respect
that
to
game play out
overtraining,
though? This that one game, how did that play out?
you see, when you're on the field, your physical understanding of things just shuts off, and you're taken over by a completely different platform in your body. You're taken on by a completely different. You go on a completely different realm, and
Hmm.
then there's no excuses, right? Because if you're gonna make excuses, you might as well sit on the bench. Then you're Even if you're a great player, you're still a player making excuses, and that's not affordable on the pitch. So once we get onto the field, I wouldn't even remember how I felt, but I just remember while jogging towards the field, my legs were feeling like I'm running in sand.
The-
With respect to overtraining, yes, we've had girls who have, who have a previously niggling pain in their ankle or in their knee, which under anxiety or under pressure, which just flares up. Uh, and sometimes they perform with that. So maybe maybe you would call that a stress training or entering on the pitch overtrained. But
hmm.
it rarely happens. It rarely happens.
So, I mean, let's say there's these like this happened to you, so and you were able to get through it. So let's say you're
I
on the
guess.
field. So let's say you're on the field and
Yeah,
you notice like let's say I'm playing my heart out, and you see this one person is like, let's say this person's making a mistake or this person just switched off. How do you like get this person to like, because it's that crucial in the game, like each person like for a game sport like rugby, each person has to be like side by side on the line, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
how do you get that one person to suddenly just, while you're focusing on making sure this person isn't getting through your line, how do you make sure the
yeah.
person on that end of the pitch has woken up, or do you rely on the rest of your teammates for that?
So there are a couple of ways on working towards this. Number one is obviously the coach. The coach is the one who manages that part of that dynamic of the game. Wherein if a player has switched off, he immediately removes her and puts a switched on player onto field. However, if the coach also, if we're winning the game, if we're winning the game, the coach will keep that player on the field, giving that player another chance. Because when a player does not perform well and you remove them, they step out with this a lot of what is it called?
Mm,
Uh, Regret,
yeah.
and then they regret it till the next game. So the coach usually gives them that time to snap back. In such a situation, what we do as a team is we bring that player and put them in the middle of the team. So if we're standing in a line, and if this person is on the outside, we ask them, okay, don't stand on the outside, you stand two people inside. So you have somebody on your left and somebody on your right who's actually making sure you stay in between them.
I mean, strategically, is that very easy to like adjust with? Because I mean, I would assume like let's say, for example, like one of your outside players who like just runs down the line. I mean,
No,
like
no,
let
it doesn't happen like that. No, it doesn't happen like that, obviously. But let's say we obviously have communications and we make decisions when there is a breakdown or when there is a when the ball is basically not being played. It can't happen in the middle of play.
hmm.
But let's say what happened in our game, like with against Philippines in the 15s. They're much bigger than us. So what ended up happening was that they were just running over our tinier players and tinier in build. That's when one of us big players had to club in with that player to be able to tackle this person down. Now that meant wasting two people, but if that has to be done, that has to be done.
Hmm. I mean,
So
these
these are things you got
tackles.
to keep your eye out for.
Yeah, I mean, of course, when you're tackling someone and you're getting into that form of contact, there's like in the back of your mind, there's got to be some amount of emotion there because it's still contact, right? So let's say you get tackled in a huge way. Someone just rams right at you, takes you down. The rest is irrelevant, and or let's say
Yeah.
you into this other person. Does that
Mhm.
like when you get tackled, do you get intimidated by that player, or let's say I don't want to mess with that person, or when you tackle that player and you get that boost of confidence, how have you like dealt with those situations?
So all of these have happened to me. Uh, I remember in my first tournament when we played in Thailand, Pattaya. Uh, we were playing our first match against Kazakhstan, and at that point of time, it was the first game, right? So we really don't know what we're getting into and what we're expecting, and we were playing against a much senior team. They are right now ranked third in
Okay.
Asia. So we were playing against Kazakhstan, and I had this assumption that, you know what, I'm the stronger one in the team, so I'm just going to blow on them and just like go run through the entire defense line, and I'm going to be absolutely fine about it. And I kid you not, Suryansh, this is this Kazaki girl, okay? And I'm coming running, and I take contact and I fall exactly boom like that. So yeah, it was crazy. It was
I mean, so
absolutely
like as soon
it
as like
it
let's say that
I
happened.
felt I felt like shit.
I mean, I would assume so. I mean, no one would like getting just rammed right all the way to the back. So
Yeah, I felt at that point I was like, bloody hell, how am I supposed to get through this? How am I supposed to get through this? And the entire tournament that was going in my mind, that shit, yeah, how am I supposed to get through these girls? And through the course of playing rugby, what we have been taught by a lot of our coaches is rugby is not about taking contact, it is about avoiding the contact.
hmm.
It is how you don't take contact. That's when you're playing good rugby.
Yeah, I mean, running
And
through the gaps is a very common thing I hear. Yeah,
yeah, run through the
yeah,
gaps, yeah, hit the space. So that was my first. So I was intimidated by that player, but also I was put down into this spiral of thoughts of how am I supposed to get across that player.
yeah,
So there were two things. I was intimidated, and I wanted to know how to overcome that.
yeah.
What happened in the course of time was, with a little bit of maturity, a little bit of experience, uh, when if I got tackled in a hard way, in a way that was painful or uh, would have supposedly been intimidating, I don't let it go to my head. If I have also made the tackle or if someone's made the tackle to me, I don't let that tackle move above my chest. It should not, the impact of that tackle should not go to my head. It should stay where the tackle is made. And that's actually the best way that works for me, because I am then able to give the same amount of impact every time. And likewise, if I get tackled, I'm able to avoid that tackle or overcome that tackle in a better way.
So let's say when you're on the field and let's say uh, you're in one of these runs and you're with confidence because you've got past one defender. I mean, you've got past one player and a second player. I mean, like let's say you're on your like the field is clear. There's just one or two people chasing you at the back, and you may not be the faster one, but you have that confidence that look,
Yeah,
I'm right. That shit, I'm right there. I need to run fast, and this player's catching up to you. Oh, that kind of
yeah.
urgency. Like how does it a little bit feel?
Well, honestly, Suranj, I've never been in that position where I am running with the ball, scoring a try, and there's somebody who's behind me. It's happened once in the nationals with me, like in the local tournament, where I was in that situation, and at that point of time, all you're thinking is that I want to run as fast as I can, and I want to run in a way as non-assuming as I can. So
Hmm.
zigzag. That's all that I am thinking of at that time. And something that I am looking for is support from a person who is much faster than me, so that I can pass to her the ball and she can go ahead and score the try definitely.
How do you
Uh,
like when you're tackling? Like what is your approach to like dealing with these either these short and really fast players, or how do you deal with these huge people who just run right through you?
well, luckily, on the Indian front, we do have players of various shapes and sizes. So when we're doing our practicing, we get conditioned to tackle bigger players, as well as we get conditioned to tackle the small, swift players who go under our armpits and run away. So we are conditioned to tackle and uh, confront both these kind of players. So we're used to it. You know when a person is running towards you, or when you have got your body locked onto your offender or your defender, you know exactly how to deal with them.
Right. I mean, yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, it must have been like let's say now when you like look back at how you've like how it's come through. I mean, sitting here now, and when you look back at it's like since like 2009 when you got into Kivandra and all of that. Like, do you have any form of regrets? As in, I should have done, I should have changed it this way, or I should have approached this thing this way. Now it would have been a bit better off. Now, like in hindsight.
I don't think I have any regrets, honestly, Suryansh. But when I look uh, when I do it, comparison is too negative a word to use, but for the lack of a better word, when I compare myself to my international counterparts, those coming from more of the specific regions, I see that at a very young age they are flourishing. And what I think to myself is that right now I'm at 27, and I joined the sport when I was 16. So is there is there is the question that comes from, is there anything else, anything that I could have done differently which would have actually made me that 1% maybe faster or 1% stronger? Is there something that I could have done which I don't get answers to? So I've done the best that I could have in my capacity with my education and a lot of other things. But that question keeps coming to my head, that was there something, could there have been something, is something that
I mean,
plays on my head.
what about those around you? I mean, let's say, I mean, because back then I would, because of the kind of mentalities that exist in India, I would assume that there's some amount of apprehension from like the people on your back end, as in like let's say
Mhm.
family or an uncle. Let's say, oh,
So
why you
luckily,
do rugby, so on and so
no,
forth.
so luckily I never actually had that kind of response from my parents or my family that why are you choosing rugby. My entire family is very sporting. For that matter, my uncle's martial art black belt, and my dad's been a hockey state player.
Right.
He's also been into boxing. So my grandfather's been into wrestling and bodybuilding. So through my family, we've actually been all sports people. So there's never been
Wow.
this apprehension or negative feedback as such. There's always been go do, play, 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 play. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Obviously, there have been those scenarios where dad's been like, you know what, you really need to focus on your education now and keep this sport
Yeah, I
aside
mean,
for a
how
bit.
if you like, let's say that there was a time where your coach tells you you're not putting enough effort on the field, or let's say there's a time where your teacher's telling you you're not putting enough effort on that study, and how did you like bridge your little disbalances at those times?
Um, so then, honestly, when I was getting into my 11th standard, I knew that I was going to take up science, and I knew that it's going to need that much more of me otherwise, like other than if I had taken
Yeah,
another subject or a vocational subject. Uh, so I knew what I was getting into. I knew that it was not going to be easy. My 11th, 12th standard passed off very well because usually in junior college they're not so stringent about your attendance. However, my attendance was still above 90%. I tried to keep it like that. I liked to keep it like that. And at the same time, I made sure that I gave equal importance to my sport. Yes, there is a time when you hit rock bottom and you're just like, you're not good in this or you're not good in this.
mhm.
And for me, at that point, it was just that I needed to get beyond this phase because I have been better at both and I will get better at both. So when physiotherapy actually happened was when the challenging years began. And at that point, again, it was, I knew I wanted to do physiotherapy. I wanted to become a physiotherapist. And I knew I wanted to do rugby and I wanted to do it for a good 20 years from then. So I I just created the mindset, I created the environment such that these two things are the only things that matter. Everything else fell in front of me.
Well, I mean, let's say, I mean, down the line, let's say let's say 10 years down the line, when let's say your career's coming to, like in terms of a player, it's coming to a bit of a close. And
Yeah.
I mean, let's say rugby did, Indian rugby did take a giant leap forward, and it was much more in the international limelight. Like, what would your reaction be in terms of like saying goodbye to the sport in that way? Like, what do you think you would think about like when you're at that stage?
I would actually, if rugby takes that boom at that point in time, I would actually be very happy for the sport and the players, and actually feel extremely delighted that I was able to be a part of the journey till the sport reached this place. Because you got to lose some people in the way till something makes it big, right?
Yeah,
And
I mean,
if I'm supposed to be, and if I'm 1 second, this is being recorded. Sorry, my friend's walking around in her uh, underclothes. We can cut that part out, I hope.
yeah, it's okay, it's okay.
Yeah. Uh, so, so yeah. So I, I, uh, I believe that all of us who are playing rugby right now, all the seniors, all the people involved in rugby right now, are a part of the foundation. And what's actually beauty of it is the foundation is being built very, very strong. There has been no hurry in trying to achieve great heights with less experience. Because if something like that happens, is you're just going to be like one of those ill-constructed buildings which crumbles down in 2 years, right? Huge promises, cheap flats, great infrastructure, boom, gone to the ground. So we we're actually moving step by step, baby steps, and let's say 10 years down the line when I'm going to retire from the game, or let me just say 15 years from now when I'm going to retire from the game, uh, I will be extremely happy and extremely delighted, like I said, that I was able to be a part of making this foundation so bloody solid that now whether you build a skyscraper or you build a bungalow, nothing is going to happen to the building. And that's something that I will rest in peace.
I mean, yeah, that is quite the emotional little hope that, I mean, of course, being an Indian myself, I hope that, any sport whatsoever, I mean, especially rugby, because I have like a soft spot there for it because I've been like since I started watching and, playing it.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's pretty, I mean, I mean, like now that you're telling me this, it really
mm,
puts things into perspective, like how far it's come on any aspect because
yep,
rugby was unheard of back then, and it's like
right,
quite popular now. So
absolutely.
yeah, I mean, on that level, I think like now that you're probably the senior most or one of the senior players on the team, right? So
Yeah.
what's that like through playing like when these people were your seniors, like the previous captains? What is the motto or the few lessons that you've learned to involve in not life but like let's say on the field with your players? What's that one thing that really sticks in your head? This and this throughout, no matter what.
So one of the things that our first captain Avni really put across to me very subtly and very crisply was that uh, there is no senior junior. You know, when we're on the field, we're all at the same level because we're all on the same team. It's not like you're in a junior team and I'm in a senior team. We're all on one team and we're all working towards getting that team up. So do not treat a player as a junior on field, or do not be under that expectation to treat a senior player as a senior on field. Everyone's on the same platform. Yes, in your own cities and states you can have that whole hierarchical thing happening, but when you're playing, that should not interfere. You should not feel that I'm the senior one, so you need to have to listen to me. There's going to be times when that that newcomer who is a newcomer, but at that point is your teammate. She says something to you which might be game changing. And as a senior, you're gonna have to just take that. You're gonna have to take that decision, and you're gonna have to make that decision, and go with that decision, because at the end of the day, it's coming from your teammate who is on your team. You
I
know,
mean, how do
so
you like, let's say these juniors who, let's say, been here for like maybe a couple of months, whereas the senior players have been there for over multiple years. How do you
yeah.
how like be on that level? Even though I mean, got there is that disparity, right? But how do you because these are the levels in seniority? How do you find that
Yeah.
little bridge that here we're all here? How do you like inculcate that?
Um. So the way I like to lead is by example. I don't like to, though there are times when I have to say things for them to be followed. With respect to these delicate things where, like for example, we have people coming from the same state. Now, while they're playing for their state, there's this whole Didi and business that is happening, and my teammates even call me Didi. But there is this sort of friendship that we share, and there is a bit of respect which they have for me and I have for them, but it's mutual. So I try and practice these values by myself. And if my, let's say the ones who are juniors now, if they're able to inculcate that in the coming teams, I mean nothing like that's success. Because I cannot I cannot I cannot inculcate a value in an already adult. It's a little difficult because they come with their own set of upbringing, they come with their own set of principles. So for me to tell them that, okay, you know what, there is no senior junior thing happening, it is very derogative, and it's very like I am imposing something that they are against. So what I do is I practice the equality in my own practice, not by saying it. That's how
Yeah,
I
I
like to
mean,
do it.
I
And
think
and
hmm,
and my the what is very what are those key points which I take away, that okay, you know what, my practice is actually making a difference is when the girls who have just joined the sport or who are inexperienced younger than me, they come up to me and they're able to have a conversation about a game, and it's not fearful, or it's not under this, oh my god, you are so experienced than me that I'm going to learn so much from you. No, we're on the same platform and we're exchanging notes. And when
yeah.
that kind of a thing happens, it's a very nice feel.
Yeah, I mean, even I mean, how about like post games? As in, let's say you've had these amazing matches with like some other players, or like let's say on the local tournaments, you've probably come across some players again and again, or you know, on the
Yeah.
international players, you've played these teams again. So have you either created any rivalries through it, or have you, or what kind of friendships have you created through them? How have you like gotten through those situations? Have people,
Uh,
reported to you like, oh, I win, ha ha ha, or how has that played out?
um, there's never actually. I'm very fortunate enough to have never come across rivalry or off the pitch. Whatever is on the pitch, it ends on the pitch.
That's
So
good.
there is it doesn't come beyond that line. Friendships obviously have been created globally with amongst players from all the countries that we've played against. I mean, I remember this game we were playing against Kazakhstan in Pune, and they had won the match against us. And it was so that girl, she tackled me, and somehow the ball got turned over, and then they scored a try. So that tackle, coming back to your previous question, was so hard that I could not get up from the floor. I was winded,
Wow.
and so that try that they scored was the final try of the game. And then that same girl, she jogged back, and she held my hand and she patted my back and she said, you're so strong, and you're the one. And she, in very broken English, but she was like, you're a good player. And in my winded state, it felt so happy when your opponent actually walks up to you and pays respect to you, and sort of a very, I can still remember that girl's face. I don't know her name because they're very disciplined about their team conduct. So that was it. She left and they went off to their team room. And but I can still remember her face. And for me, I have created a friend in her. And every time that we meet or come across in tournaments, there's always a nod and an acknowledgement, a wave, you know, something like that.
Yeah.
So friendships have been created a lot through the sport. I mean, the Philippines team and India team are now like one. We probably will even play in one team, and we will. Yeah. It's been beautiful, and not the beauty of it is not only the English speaking girls have been able to make bonds. Even the girls who speak non-English, everything else apart from English, have actually built bonds with each other by speaking their own language with each other and building relationships. So that's actually been very, very nice. Something that's happened personally as well as what I've seen happening with my team girls.
I mean, the common, like from speaking to you, I think the common theme that I'm noticing in the Indian team at least is that there's always that little sense of solidarity, like no matter what, even when it's like sticking by the injury or, on the pitch, making so everyone's switched on, everyone's doing the lockdown workouts, everyone's just
Yeah,
together.
yeah,
Like in my opinion, even though I know very little as compared to you or most others about the sport, I would say that, the with that like recurring theme. I don't see why like over the years Rugby India could go like could go leaps and bounds to that respect.
Absolutely, exactly. Which is why I said in the next 5 years we will bump up 3 ranks
Yeah, I
easily.
mean, let's say 5 years later. I mean, sorry, 13 years later, as you said, when you're let's say saying goodbye to the sport.
Why
Let's say
15?
15. Okay, 15. Okay, till 20. Let's see. You now you never know. People have
You never
retired
know.
50 as well. So, uh,
Exactly.
so let's say when you're whichever year that is, and you're leaving rugby, what and you or let's say when you've become a coach or let's say you become a manager of a team and when you're
Yeah.
actually saying goodbye to the sport as a whole, what's the one thing that uh, you would want to be remembered as in let's say, oh, we're speaking of Vabhiz Bharucha, oh, isn't she the one who did this, or this is
Mhm.
the lesson she taught me, what is that
I think
one
I'd,
thing?
I think I'd like to be recalled as a fair, not like fair, but
Hmm.
a fair uh, player,
Yeah, I
and
mean, yeah.
a fair and a disciplined player. Yeah, that's
I
what
mean,
I'd
on
like to
that note,
be
I think, yeah,
remembered as. Yeah,
carry on.
yeah, just and fair and disciplined on and off the field. That's it.
Yeah,
That's
I
what I'd
mean,
like to be recalled as.
on that
Yeah.
note, I think that's something spectacular that we've heard from you. I mean, I don't think I have anything else to say. I mean,
Thank
it's
you, Suraj.
genuinely gobsmacking in the sense, like seeing. I've said it earlier and I'll say it again. Seeing the way that your journey has come forward and how your style of leadership, like it's often
Yeah,
been even in the world today we see people being criticized for their ways of going about things or people being too nice, and I mean
yeah,
seeing through your way of going about it has that common balance, like let's say yes, I am your senior, but at the end of the day I am still your friend and you can talk to me. That theme, I
yeah,
mean that little solidarity, of course, that is, I mean, that is what
yeah.
it is. I mean,
Yes.
a friend in your leader. So
Yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
mean, on that note, I think that's absolutely spectacular.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you, Suraj. Thank you so much.
Is there anything
That
else you'd
was
like to say, or like, shall we wrap up now?
no. I'm through. You asked me everything.
Well, yeah, I think let's say this XYZ number of years later, we'll check back in with you and we'll see how
Of
what
course,
has
yes.
gone. Yes,
I will
definitely.
take that up as a challenge.
Definitely, definitely. Then maybe I'm going to come and join you on the rugby field one day.
Please do. I will expect. I will wait now. Next time when we come to Cal, I want to see
Yeah,
you on the field.
definitely, definitely. Yeah, well, on that note, I think yeah, that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Suraj. It
yeah,
was lovely. Very well planned.
yeah. Thank
Really,
you so much.
it was really nice.
Yeah, it was a
Good.
pleasure having you. Well, yeah, I think we'll wrap up for now, and yeah, what now?